Devina Mehra is with us, founder, chairperson, and managing director at First Global. Devina, good morning. Great to have you with us here on the program. Thanks very much. Where do we go from here? What next for markets here in India, Devina, for our Indian audiences?
Good morning. My advice actually has not changed very much. This Monday, which was supposed to be a manic Monday, I had breakfast at a 100-year-old cafe just to remind myself that there are many things that happen which in the moment appear very tumultuous, but eventually, the golden mantra is that this too shall pass. And to some extent, India, in any case, even when the tariffs were imposed before the rollback, was relatively a little insulated, one, because we don't have that much external exposure, and two, on a relative basis, it was a possibility that you could actually be gainers because the tariffs were vis-a-vis the US and all your competitors had higher tariffs. But for the moment, that's on the pause button has been set on that. So my advice remains pretty much the same as it has been for the last 10, even for the last 10 days, which is that if you, whatever is your equity allocation, which should not never be 100%, you should remain invested. But in a steadier portfolio, if you had invested in the themes of 2024 or were overexposed to small and micro caps, you have to recalibrate. So don't try to make it up from the same stocks or the same strategy or the same scheme. That's what I always say, that just because you bought something at 100 and now it's 60, don't try to go back to 100 with that, because the market has no interest in what your purchase price was. So broadly, I would still say remain invested, because the risk of a crash for the large cap steady state is not very high, which is not to say there's absolutely cannot be any downside in the indexes from here, but the risk reward is in your favor, in the sense that the percentage the market can fall is probably less than the percentage it can rise. And when there is anxiety, when these questions come that should I pull out of the market, should I stop my SIPs, is usually in hindsight the very time that you should remain invested.
Devina, just one more question, and then my colleagues will come in. Since diversification is a big theme, and obviously at a larger level it does not change, but this is a more near-term kind of question. U.S. assets generally have seen, it's like the U.S. passport, right? Extraordinary privilege. Same with U.S. assets. Do you think that is taken a bit of a knock after what we've seen? Or again, as you began by saying, that 100-year-old cafe, this too shall pass and nothing. But then, in that sense, nothing ever matters.
No, the US, I think, has taken a knock. First of all, let's first look at the US market. So first of all, this is also a mantra I keep repeating, that the global does not mean the US. US may be the largest market, but global diversification doesn't mean that you buy an S&P or a NASDAQ ETF and no, that's not good enough. While in the near term, we also think that if the US doesn't do well, nothing will do well. But if you look at, let's say, the period between 2003 to 2007, and that was the time US was not coming off a high. It was already in the doldrums after the tech crash. And yet in that 4 or 5 year period, it did practically nothing. For the entire period, it was up only 65%. Remember, the NASDAQ high of 2000 was not taken out till 2015. And in that 2003 to 7 period, the emerging market index went up 3.5, 4 times. India went up 6 times. Brazil went up 10 times. So there can be a disconnect. So that's the market part. But and US has been outperforming for about 12 years. So anyway, I'd been watching that sometime that outperformance would end. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said that we are watching, but nothing looks imminent. But I think Trump has hastened the end of the US outperformance. And more than that, whatever US has done has hurt, I think, even on a long-term basis, the US dollar's position as the reserve currency of the world and the trade currency of the world. People will start to look at alternatives 2 years ago, I had made a video saying de-dollarization will not happen in a hurry because reserve currencies don't change in a hurry. But I think Trump has shaken something fundamental about the trust in US, because US was not just a rich country. It was a country where the world looked up to for its rule of law, its institutions, um, all of those things, intellectual freedom. It literally attracted the best and brightest from around the world. And that part, it is changing. Like, for example, a lot of East Asian countries did become much richer, but they did not attract the talent from the world because of all these things, that they did not have this reputation of great institutions and freedoms, which US did. So yeah, there's some permanent damage to America for sure, but that doesn't mean that you should not, as an Indian resident, diversify, because again, putting all your eggs in one basket is never a sensible strategy. And this is not something for a 6-month view. It is something you have to do over a period of time.
Hi, Devina. Good morning. Good to see you. When on Monday morning, people are talking about a Black Monday. I saw your tweet at that point of time, and I'd rather be with you at Cafe New York, having that delicious breakfast. That said, you've already answered a couple of my questions with regard to India or in emerging markets could outperform, and that's a possibility. Even if the US markets don't perform that well. And over the last few years, we've seen the US market capitalization as a percentage of the total global market capitalization has actually gone up. So maybe it's time for them to unwind some part of that outperformance. That said, the SIPs, we're keeping it going, and I think most investors as well, they have faith. But what would your asset allocation strategy be as of now? Because maybe in the next 12 months or so, your fixed income could give better returns than equity. Just maybe, that 8 to 10% return or thereabouts. So what will your asset allocation advice be to a lot of our investors?
I normally say that don't change your asset allocation too frequently, because it's very difficult to time that. So it is usually a good idea to decide broadly on your asset allocation. Don't tinker around too much with it, because what you end up doing mostly is chasing the last asset or last strategy that did well. So that's what you will end up doing. And that, if you do it systematically, you systematically bring down returns. So we have, like for equities, all these calculations that this is how equities compounded for 20 years, 30 years, I'm talking even for India. But if you look at the mutual fund data, you will find that most people do not remain, majority of the people, more than 50% of the people do not remain invested for more than 2 years. So that's the data. So that's what causes the actual underperformance. As I said, the time you are asking, the time to ask this question actually usually is when you are absolutely gung-ho and you think that the equity markets are going to do brilliantly, which was the case for most of 2024, let alone small investors. I had family offices coming to me, saying that, why are you so risk averse? We want to take high risk and get high returns. I said, only thing certain with high risk is high risk of losses, high returns are not guaranteed. And the other was that, no, we don't have extraordinary expectations. We'll be happy if you give us 30-35% compounded.
Wow. Devina,
when you are in that mode is when you should probably look at cutting back. And sentiment is always a contraindicator. Again, studies around the world have shown it, not just in America, but every continent, every country, this study has been done. It shows that sentiment is a contraindicator. When there is fear, anxiety, question marks, then the next period returns are higher. And when everybody is gung-ho, the next period returns are lower. So that's how it goes.
Devina, I'll be very happy with that low to mid-teens returns. I keep my SIPs going, most of what I earn. And people say, Nigel, you didn't see 2008. I don't want to see it also, and I hope I don't have to see it. But probably this could be the best phase to build a longer-term portfolio. So that's my hope.
Absolutely. Devina, you said it, I think. That's going to be the new reality check for a lot of newer investors. I'm hearing that in some of my friend circle as well. Market doesn't go up. And the idea of, 12% returns compounding being good returns, that idea is very alien and very new to a lot of the youngsters who came to the market post-COVID, right? But we'll see. The market is the best teacher, they say, and I'm sure people will learn.
They say you're smart if you learn from other people's mistakes. but at least learn from your own mistakes.
Absolutely, absolutely, Devina. Great chat. Thank you so much for joining in. You have a great Friday, and we'll connect again soon.